Marcus Chen checked his phone for the third time in 5 minutes. 7:47 p.m. Sarah, or at least that's what her profile said, was now 17 minutes late. He shifted in the corner booth of Rosemary's, a cozy Italian restaurant his sister had recommended, and tried not to look as pathetic as he felt. The waiter had already passed by twice with pitying glances. Marcus waved him off both times, ordering nothing but water, hoping his date would actually show up before he had to admit defeat and slink out of here alone. He shouldn't have agreed to this. Blind dates were Emma's idea, not his. His younger sister had been relentless after his breakup with Jennifer 6 months ago. "You need to get back out there," she'd insisted, practically wrestling his phone away to set up his dating profile. "You're 32, not dead." But sitting here alone, watching couples laugh over shared appetizers and families celebrate birthdays at nearby tables, Marcus felt pretty damn close to dead inside. 7:52 p.m. He was giving it until 8 o'clock. That seemed reasonable, dignified even. Then he'd pay for his water, leave a generous tip to apologize for taking up the booth, and go home to his cat and his bruised ego. Marcus pulled up Sarah's profile one more time. Her photos showed a woman with warm brown eyes and an easy smile. Third-grade teacher, loved hiking and bad puns. Had written in her bio, looking for someone who doesn't take life too seriously but takes kindness very seriously. He'd liked that. Messaged her a terrible joke about a teacher who married a farmer they met in the field of education. She'd laughed, or at least sent a string of crying laughing emojis, and suggested meeting for dinner. That was 4 days ago. Now, Marcus was beginning to think those emojis had been polite lies. 7:56 p.m. He was reaching for his jacket when he heard it, the soft patter of small footsteps, and the restaurant door chiming. Marcus glanced up reflexively and froze. A little girl stood in. The entrance, maybe 6 or 7 years old, with 2 dark braids and a pink backpack covered in unicorn patches. She was scanning the restaurant with the serious determination of someone on a mission. When her eyes landed on Marcus, her whole face lit up. She marched straight toward his booth. "Are you Marcus?" she asked, slightly breathless, her small hands gripping the edge of his table. Marcus blinked. Yes?" The girl broke into a relieved grin. "Good. My mommy's sorry she's late. She had an emergency with Mrs. Patterson's cat. It got stuck in a tree again. And then we had to help get it down, and then there was traffic, and then—" She paused for breath. "Anyway, she's parking the car. She said to tell you she's really, really sorry, and she promises she's not flaky." Marcus's brain was trying to catch up. "Your mommy?" "Uh-huh." The girl climbed uninvited into the booth across from him, shrugging off her backpack. "I'm Lily. Mommy said you're a software engineer. Do you make video games?" No, I work on medical record systems for hospitals." Marcus felt like he'd missed several important steps in this conversation. "Lily, does your mom know you just walked into a restaurant by yourself?" Lily rolled her eyes with the exaggerated exasperation only a child could muster. "I'm not by myself. I'm with you. And Mommy's right outside. She saw you through the window and sent me in to tell you she's coming." Before Marcus could respond, the restaurant door opened again, and a woman rushed in, her face flushed with embarrassment and exertion. She had the same warm brown eyes from the profile pictures, though her hair was windblown and there was what looked suspiciously like cat fur on her sweater. "Lily!" She hurried toward the booth. "You were supposed to wait, for me!" Then she turned to Marcus with a grimace that was half smile, half wince. "I am so sorry. This is absolutely the worst first impression in the history of first impressions." Marcus found himself smiling despite the absurdity of the situation. "It's definitely memorable." Sarah, because yes, this was definitely Sarah, slid into the booth next to Lily, setting down a purse that appeared to be covered in the same cat fur as her sweater. "I'm Sarah, you're Marcus, and I'm guessing my daughter already introduced herself and told you our entire life story." "Just the part about Mrs. Patterson's cat," Marcus said. "Mr. Whiskers," Lily supplied helpfully. "He's really fat and climbs trees but then forgets how to get down." Sarah closed her eyes briefly, as if praying for strength. "I should explain I'm a teacher, and I live next door to one of my former students' grandmothers, Mrs. Patterson. She's 86 and was in tears because Mr. Whiskers was stuck up in her oak tree. Again. I couldn't just ignore her." "Of course not," Marcus said, and meant it. "And then my babysitter, My neighbor, who usually watches Lily when I have plans, called to say her daughter went into labor 3 weeks early and she had to rush to the hospital. Oh, wow. Congratulations to her, Marcus said. Right, but also terrible timing. Sarah ran a hand through her hair, looking genuinely distressed. I tried to text you, but my phone died right after I got Mr. Whiskers down from the tree. I think he scratched through my charging cable last week, and I didn't realize it was broken, and I didn't have your number memorized, and I could either cancel and you'd think I stood you up, or I could bring Lily and you think I'm a disaster of a human being who brings her kid on dates. I don't think you're a disaster, Marcus said slowly. I think you helped an elderly neighbor and dealt with a child care emergency. That's actually kind of great? Sarah stared at him like he'd just spoken in Mandarin. You're not mad? Why would I be mad? Well, I mean, I was getting a little worried around the 45-minute mark, Marcus admitted. But that was before I knew about Mr. Whiskers. Lily giggled. Mr. Whiskers is a menace. That's what Mommy says. I say that in the privacy of our home, Sarah said, but she was smiling now, some of the tension leaving her shoulders. I'm still really sorry about this. We can reschedule if you want. I completely understand if this is too weird. Marcus looked at Lily, who was watching him with open curiosity, and then at Sarah, who looked exhausted and embarrassed, but also like she was trying very hard to hold everything together. He thought about his sister, Emma, who'd told him to be open to unexpected things. He thought about how he'd been dreading another polite, scripted first date where they'd talk about the weather and their jobs and never see each other again. This was definitely not scripted. I'm already here, Marcus said, and I'm starving. Unless Lily's not allowed to eat Italian food? Lily's eyes went wide. I love Italian food. Can I get spaghetti? Sarah looked at Marcus with something that might have been gratitude or relief, or possibly the beginning of tears. Are you sure? I'm sure. But fair warning, I'm going to need the full story about Mr. Whiskers, including how many times he's been stuck in that tree. 7 times, Lily announced. This year. It's October, Sarah said. It's only October. Marcus laughed, a real laugh, the first one he'd had in weeks. This is going to be a good story. The waiter appeared, looking surprised to see Marcus's table suddenly occupied by 2 people, one of them in a unicorn backpack. Are we ready to order? Can we get some breadsticks for the table? Sarah asked. And maybe 3 waters? I think we all need to hydrate after our evening. As they ordered, spaghetti and meatballs for Lily, chicken parmesan for Sarah, and fettuccine alfredo for Marcus, the conversation flowed more easily than Marcus had expected. Lily chattered about her first-grade class and her best friend Zoe and her goldfish named Captain Sparkles. Sarah interjected with corrections and clarifications, looking apologetically at Marcus every few minutes as if expecting him to bolt for the exit. He didn't want to bolt. He was actually enjoying himself. So, Marcus said once Lily was distracted by the coloring sheet and crayons the waiter had brought, you mentioned in your profile that you're a 3rd-grade teacher? I am. Washington Elementary. This is my 6th year teaching. Sarah took a sip of water. I love it most days, even the chaotic ones where someone brings a lizard to school without permission and it escapes during story time. That happened last month, Lily whispered loudly. It was in my mommy's class. It was indeed. We found him 3 days later in the book nook, named him Houdini. Marcus grinned. Did the kid get to keep him? After much negotiation with parents, yes. Houdini now lives in a proper terrarium at the student's house and we occasionally get photo updates. Sarah smiled. What about you? Medical record systems. Is that as exciting as it sounds? Oh, incredibly exciting. Nothing says thrill quite like database optimization. But Marcus said it with enough humor that Sarah laughed. Actually, it's more meaningful than people think. I'm working on a system that helps hospitals share patient information more securely, so if someone has an emergency in a different city, doctors can still access their medical history. It could save lives. That's actually really cool, Sarah said, and she sounded genuinely interested. Mommy says you should always find the cool in anything, Lily announced, looking up from her coloring. Even boring stuff. That's good advice, Marcus said. Their food arrived, and they ate and talked. Sarah told him about growing up in Oregon, about her parents who lived in Seattle now, about how she'd ended up teaching in a small town an hour outside the city. Marcus talked about his work, about his sister Emma, and her 3-year-old son who was obsessed with dinosaurs, about the amateur robotics club he volunteered with on weekends. Lily finished her spaghetti and promptly fell asleep with her head on her backpack, leaving Marcus and Sarah to talk in lower voices while the restaurant buzzed around them. "This wasn't how I imagined tonight going," Sarah admitted, glancing fondly at her sleeping daughter. "I had a whole plan. Wear the nice dress, not the cat fur sweater. Arrive on time. Make a good impression. Maybe flirt a little." "For what it's worth," Marcus said, "I think you made a great impression. You rescued a cat, helped your neighbor, and solved a childcare crisis, all while trying to make it to a first date with a stranger." "That's kind of impressive." Sarah ducked her head, smiling. "You're very kind to say that." "I'm not being kind. I'm being honest." Marcus hesitated, then continued. "My ex, Jennifer, she used to get really frustrated when things didn't go according to plan. If we were late to something or if dinner reservations got messed up, it would ruin the whole night. It was exhausting trying to keep everything perfect." "That sounds stressful," Sarah said quietly. "It was. And then I spent 6 months wondering if maybe I was the problem, if I wasn't organized enough or thoughtful enough or whatever enough." Marcus realized he was oversharing, but Sarah was listening with those warm, attentive eyes, and somehow it felt okay. "But tonight, watching you roll with everything that went wrong, and still show up, and still apologize even though none of it was really your fault. I don't know. It reminded me that there are people who handle chaos with grace." Sarah was quiet for a moment. "That's one of the nicest things anyone's ever said to me. Though I should mention I cried in my car for 5 minutes before I came in here because I was convinced you'd hate me." "I don't hate you," Marcus said. "I actually really want to see you again. Maybe next time without the cat emergency and the childcare crisis." "I would like that too," Sarah said, her smile soft and genuine. "Fair warning, though. My life comes with a pretty adorable 7-year-old attachment. She's not going anywhere." "I gathered that." Marcus glanced at Lily, who was snoring softly. "She seems pretty great." "She is. But dating as a single mom is complicated. A lot of guys run for the hills once they realize there's a kid involved." "Well, I'm not a lot of guys," Marcus said. "And honestly, the fact that you're raising a kid who's polite and funny and clearly well-loved tells me more about you than any perfect date could." Sarah's eyes were definitely getting misty now. "Okay, you need to stop saying perfect things or I'm going to cry in this restaurant." "Noted. I'll say something imperfect." Marcus pretended to think. I have a cat named Kevin, and he's kind of a jerk." Sarah laughed, loud enough that a few nearby diners looked over. "Kevin?" "Kevin. I adopted him from a shelter and they'd already named him. It seemed wrong to change it." "What kind of cat is Kevin?" "An orange tabby with 1 brain cell and an attitude problem." They talked until the waiter gently informed them the restaurant was closing. Sarah carefully woke Lily, who blinked sleepily and asked if they could have dessert tomorrow. Marcus walked them to Sarah's car, a slightly dented Honda with a car seat in the back, and what appeared to be an art project made of popsicle sticks on the dashboard. "Thank you for tonight," Sarah said as she buckled Lily into her seat, "for being understanding and kind and not running away when my daughter showed up like a tiny messenger." "Thank you for showing up," Marcus said, "even late and covered in cat fur. It's a look I'm workshopping." Sarah closed the back door and turned to face him. "So, next time? Maybe coffee? Somewhere without cat emergencies? I'd really like that." Though honestly, the cat emergency made for a pretty memorable story. They exchanged numbers, Marcus carefully entering his into her phone and double-checking she'd saved it correctly. As Sarah drove away, Lily waved sleepily from her car seat, and Marcus found himself waving back with a ridiculous grin on his face. He texted his sister on the walk to his own car. "You were right about the blind date thing," Emma responded immediately. "Tell me everything." Her daughter showed up first to explain why she was late. Then we had dinner as a group. It was perfect. "Wait, what a long story. I'll call you tomorrow." "But Emma..." "Faya? Aga, thanks for making me do this." Marcus drove home with the radio playing and the windows down, despite the October chill. When he got to his apartment, Kevin greeted him with an annoyed meow. Dinner was 10 minutes late, but even his cat's attitude couldn't dampen Marcus's mood. He had a second date to plan. Maybe the park, where Lily could run around and Sarah could relax without worrying about fancy restaurants and perfect impressions. Maybe they'd bring a frisbee. Maybe Kevin and Mr. Whiskers could form a support group for temperamental pets. Marcus was still smiling when he fell asleep that night, his phone on his nightstand with Sarah's number at the top of his recent contacts. Tomorrow, he'd text her, something casual and funny, maybe another terrible pun about teaching. But for tonight, he simply replayed the evening in his mind. The surprise of a little girl in a unicorn backpack, the relief on Sarah's face when he didn't leave, the easy laughter over Italian food and stories about cats stuck in trees. The blind date had been empty. Until it wasn't. And somehow, that made all the difference.